Hello there, everyone, and welcome back to Lovely Grind. My name is Michael Preby, and my website's lovelygrind.com. That's where you can find information about my coaching, my online courses, and my support and success monthly membership area. So I hope you'll check out lovelygrind.com, and I welcome you back to my YouTube channel and to today's video, which is asking the question, is prescription drug withdrawal a punishment from God? Now, that might sound like a silly question to some people, but maybe to some of you it does not sound like a silly question. Probably not, or I wouldn't be making this video, because I know a lot of people have expressed that concern to me as they're going through the process of getting off medications and experiencing withdrawal symptoms. And I myself wondered such things at times. You can't help but wonder it. When you're experiencing the depths of some of these torturous symptoms, am I being punished in some way from God for something I did that was so egregious that my world is going to be upended and I'm going to be subject to these sorts of tortures? So that's the question I'm going to ask. Is withdrawal really a punishment from God, and what are my thoughts on the matter? To recap my background, I was on Paxil, an SSRI antidepressant, and Xanax, a benzodiazepine medication, for over a dozen years. I was put on those as a senior in college and continued to take them, like I said, for a good number of years, until finally, for various reasons, I decided I had to get off of them. And when I did get off them, I experienced a range of severe withdrawal symptoms that I didn't necessarily see coming, didn't at first know what to make of or how to deal with, but that eventually I was able to move past. So I was able to move past that withdrawal process and find healing, and I think that you can too. That's why I share these videos with you, because I know a lot of people searching for this topic online. If you're searching for it, you're probably in the middle of something pretty heavy. So welcome back again to this video. And if any of you are in the process of getting off meds and experiencing symptoms, or if you're already off and working through an ongoing healing process, then you know that withdrawal symptoms don't just fall into one category. They can be physical, like nerve pains, digestive problems, sleep issues, etc. They can be emotional, deep, dark depression, heightened anxiety and fear. They can be psychological, intrusive thoughts, ruminations, mental fog. But then there's that fourth category. They can also be spiritual. And I think some examples of that would be excessive feelings of guilt and shame, excessive ruminations on past mistakes to the point where you feel as if you're unlovable or condemned, excessive feelings of existential isolation or worthlessness, again, where you think that somehow you're not worth a good future, you're unlovable, or you've already been condemned spiritually in some way. Those are some of the spiritual things that a person can experience. In addition to, I think, feelings of difficulty making a connection with God, or feeling those mountaintop uplifting type feelings during prayer or singing or scripture reading or devotion like you might have felt in the past. So all of these things, just another way of saying spiritual symptoms. And when you experience some of these spiritual symptoms alongside all the other ones, you start to wonder, what did I do to deserve this? I must have done something. Is God punishing me? Because these things are so powerful, so all-consuming, these symptoms I'm experiencing, these feelings, this fear, they must be from some sort of higher power, not human. You know, like Paul talks about in Ephesians, there's spiritual warfare, things that we can't usually see that are going on all around us. Well, when I was going through withdrawal, I think the curtain gets very thin, and you can see some of these things. I truly felt I could. You know, I wrote an ebook entitled More Than a Glimpse of Hell, and that has a double meaning, because at the time I thought this experience is certainly hellish, but that wasn't the whole story. The healing and the good stuff then developed and came down the line. But I also entitled that book More Than a Glimpse of Hell, because I felt I was seeing more than a glimpse of hell at the time. I was being shown a whole lot of it with regards to some of the demonic tortures and things that were going on internally for me. Again, maybe those spiritual warfares that are usually unseen can become a little more visible in times like prescription drug withdrawal. So a person does wonder, Am I being punished from God? So what do I think the answer to that is? I think the answer is no. I do not think it's a punishment from God. I do not think that's the right way to think of prescription drug withdrawal and the symptoms one experiences. What I do think is that these symptoms are a consequence of man's actions. So they're not a consequence of God's intent, they're a consequence of man's actions. Whenever man tries to manipulate the God-made order of things, the natural order of things, there's blowback and consequences. And we see this all the time with prescription drugs, trying to manipulate the various natural order of things, and specifically with antidepressants or benzos, trying to manipulate the neurochemical systems and the human emotional experience and the stress and anxiety reactions in the body and the stores of various neurotransmitters that we have that might leave us, feeling well versus not feeling well. There's flux to these things over time when a person's in the course of natural life, right? Not an inherent imbalance like the drug companies might try to sell, but there are imbalances over time when a person is going through very stressful times or dealing with relationship issues, job issues, psychological and health issues they maybe don't understand. Certainly, there can be some central nervous system imbalances during those periods of time and neurochemical imbalances. And the drug companies and the people who made these drugs come along and say, tell you what if we just cut that uncomfortable part out of the experience altogether? How great would that be? Right? Sounds pretty good. But you can never just attack one part of our systems like that and not have consequences in other places or long term after use of these drugs. So I think that these withdrawal symptoms, rather than being a punishment from God, are a rather predictable consequence of man meddling around where he ought not to. So I think whenever man tries to play God, it doesn't end up very well for humankind. And I think we're starting to see that with respects to these medications as more and more people try to get off them and experience difficulties and go through the withdrawal symptoms that can be so difficult. God created a lot of healing capabilities in our body and minds, healing capabilities that can even see us through withdrawal and past, but also a lot of natural tools at our disposal that we can use in times of distress when we're going through periods of confusion and grief and anxiety and maybe professional or domestic stress, the things that are causing us to feel panic or insomnia, etc. There's natural ways that we can work through these periods and rebalance our systems without having to suffer the potential consequences of something like these medications. So we just have to be willing to, I think, put in the work and be patient, and also have some people who steer us in that direction. And that's part of the problem there, is because doctors need to be steering people in the direction of some natural solutions and natural tools, things that are already at our disposal when they see a patient who's having problems. And then there wouldn't have to be these potential withdrawal effects down the line. So ultimately, do I think that withdrawal is a punishment from God? No, I do not. I think that he might be using the situation to nudge us in some important directions. I think it can be a very spiritually raw experience. I think it can be disturbing, obviously, but I also think that it can be used to a person's benefit, even from a spiritual standpoint. If we resolve to stay close to God. So if you're going through something right now that feels very spiritual in nature in the way of symptoms and maybe even demonic, like torture, don't let it pull you away from God. Don't let it drive a wedge between you and God. In fact, I would double down on the idea of faith, even if that sense of connection isn't always there and it feels like just going through the motions sometimes. Make it a part of your plan to get even closer to God through this experience. He won't abandon you. And if your faith can become stronger, then no matter what else happens right now, something good is going to be going on behind the scenes here. It takes faith in this process. It takes faith to get up day after day and do the right things for yourself when it just doesn't seem to be paying off. Trust me, these things are paying off. There's a cumulative effect here going on. You do the right things over time, it chips away at this process and good things are happening behind the scenes. And like I said before, there are capabilities that God put into our bodies and minds, healing capabilities that are so powerful that they can overcome even something like withdrawal. And I guess that's the take-home message from this video. That's the hope. If you remember nothing else about this video, remember that. My name is Michael Preby. My website's lovelygrind.com. That's where you can find my blog posts, information about my coaching, my courses, and my membership area. So I hope you'll check out that website. I'm glad you came back to this YouTube channel for today's video. I hope you found it useful. I hope you'll keep coming back. Until next time, please remember to take care of yourself and your dreams.